For 40 years, WBTV has broadcast throughout the Carolinas. Today, Top of the Day journeys back to the very beginning.
In a few moments, a memorable event in the advancement of television in this area will occur.
We'll pay tribute to the special people, places, and events that made it all possible, and take a look at what's in store for the future. Join us as we celebrate 4 decades of broadcasting excellence. Today on Top of the Day.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our show on this historic occasion, 40 years of great days here at WBTV on this July 14th, 1989. I'm C.J. Underwood.
And I'm Barbara McKay. Good morning. We are usually not seen in this room. This is known as the control room at WBTV, and surrounded we are by the people who do just that. They control us. Our producer, our director, all kinds of talented people that make sure that we are seen by you each day.
And incidentally, you have to treat these people nice.
Yes.
Patsy here will cut you off if you don't do well. And our director here can play funny tricks on you sometimes, a matter of fact.
And what? Just like that. Now, John, behave yourself. We don't want people to have to look at us turned upside down, standing on their heads.
Upside down cake. Maybe you can make one of those sometimes.
We are going to have cake today, by the way.
Yeah, and we're going to meet a lot of pioneers, a lot of great people who made this station possible for the last 40 years.
Might be a good day to tape the show if you've been a friend to WBTV for a long time.
All righty, we're here to stand by here. It's time for Lori Thomas and the news.
Hello, everyone. Yesterday it was called unbelievable. Today it's become bizarre. It's the story of that pilot who survived an unconscious 5-hour flight and crashed into the ocean. Today, police in Florida say that 36-year-old Thomas Root had been shot through the stomach with a bullet passing through his rib cage, his colon, and his arm. Root took off yesterday from Washington, D.C. en route to Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Soon after taking off, he radioed the control tower that he was having trouble breathing. He put the plane on autopilot and then passed out. The plane flew on, shadowed by military jets, until it ran out of gas and spiraled into the Atlantic Ocean near the Bahamas. The water revived Root. He swam to the Coast Guard rescuers who were standing by in a life raft.
I said to the young lady who talked to me to tell him, Root, you really did it this time.
Today, Thomas Root is in stable condition in a Miami hospital. Investigators say that a gunpowder burn indicated that Root was shot at close range in the air, but it did not say whether the gunshot was self-inflicted. Lufthansa Airlines has made it official today. The company hopes to begin direct service from Charlotte to West Germany as early as next April. The gateway, if approved, would be Charlotte's second European connection. As you know, Piedmont already offers nonstop service to London. The additional service to Germany would be a big drawing card for bringing new business to town. Also, Lufthansa service would be a big plus to the 56 German companies already here. Lufthansa plans to offer 3 round trips to Frankfurt every week. The new gateway still would have to have the approval of the State Department and the Department of Transportation. The last vestige of the PTL religious empire may decide today how many people it has to lay off. Heritage Ministry says that the layoffs are needed so that it can start paying off debts of more than $1 million. Ministry President Sam Johnson says that the monthly budget will be cut from $900,000 to $500,000 to get more in line with donations. He blames that on a traditional summer slump in giving. An agency to help the homeless, women, and families is hoping to build a 14-bedroom shelter on the plaza in East Charlotte. Charlotte Emergency Housing Incorporated wants to lease some city-owned land in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood. Homeowners say they want to know more about that shelter first. For the past 4.5 years, the Charlotte Emergency Housing Agency has been renting a 4-bedroom house near the Park Road YWCA. But instead of calling it a shelter, the agency says it's really transitional housing for the working poor. Families like the Goodsons, Ronald, Crystal, and little Brandy Nicole, are given a room like this for 60 days and help to get back on their feet.
They've been rendered homeless for due to some crisis in their life. And we work with other agencies. We work with them. We help them get jobs. We help them find permanent residence. We refer them to agencies that can help them get deposits and money, medical help if they need it, daycare if they need it, whatever problems they are having that has created this enormous problem of homelessness.
85% of the families the agencies helped out have found jobs and a place to live. The Goodsons are well on their way. Ronald has a job as a long-distance trucker.
Come down here, didn't have no place to go. Like I said, I was hurting financially back home there for a little bit, and I had to get some bills paid off. Now I got them paid off. I can start putting money into savings to get me an apartment.
Emergency Housing says it sees as many as 40 families a month, along with 15 single homeless women, far too many for this 4-bedroom house. So the agency is hoping to build a new 14-bedroom house on the plaza about a block north of Parkwood Avenue. However, some plaza neighbors aren't sure that they want the $400,000 facility next door.
So I do have mixed emotions about it. I know they need a place, and I want them to have a place, but I do hate for them to come in our neighborhood.
How long have you been here?
I have been here 33 years, and that's a long time to see our neighborhood sort of mixed up.
Well, I think that people in that category needs a place to go, and I think it'd be good. And if our neighborhood can offer that, I feel that's something we should do.
Emergency Housing says it does not work with transients, alcoholics, or the mentally ill. The group is planning to meet with plaza neighbors next Thursday to get better acquainted. And the city will vote on the lease coming up in August. A deaf teenager has decided to take her gripe against Western Piedmont Community College in Morganton to Uncle Sam. 17-year-old Heather Foster of Valdez wants to attend nursing school. So today she's mailing a discrimination complaint to the Office of Civil Rights in Atlanta. The young woman's parents have been trying to get her into the associate degree nursing program since the school first rejected her application in April. The school's trustee secretary says that the college denied Ms. Foster's application because of the severity of her hearing loss and the changes that would have to be made to accommodate her. She has been deaf since birth. And that is a look at the news for right now. It's time to move on to the AccuWeather Center. Here's CJ.
Hey, some typical July weather is with us right now, but maybe a little atypical weather is going to be taking over the weekend. Those numbers are going down, and I'll tell you what, we could have a really great one coming up. But today, already 83 degrees, 46% humidity. The wind's out of the north at 6 miles an hour, a barometer 29.93. Moving up from that point, clouds and sun, less humid today, a high of 86, on the way to a great weekend as we celebrate here our 40th anniversary in television. Well, there's going to be a big event tomorrow, and of course, great weather for it. Looks like Summer Breeze, 5,000-meter run. That's coming up tomorrow, Saturday, July 15th. And the big event is at night at 9 p.m., Charlotte's only nighttime foot race. Entry forms are available at various YMCAs around the area, athletic stores, or you can just call the station here at 333-7771 and check in on that and participate in the big run. We'll be back. Lots of history to share with you coming up.
WBTV's broadcasting pioneers take us back to the beginning. Next.
Well, hi there. I'm Lynn Bradley Love, and I'm standing right now in our newsroom. It's one of the most modern and technologically complete newsrooms in the country. With the advent of computers and videotape, when news breaks, we can literally get it on the air to you and have you informed in just a matter of minutes. We send out a lot of it through this room. This is Electronic News Gathering, or ENG, and this is our engineer, Roger Hovis. Roger, would you put that tape in and cue it up for me, please? Thank you. Now, this is kind of an example of how we get the tapes on the air to you. Chuck Johnston, our assistant producer, and myself have put together a story that shows you how different things are today than the way that they used to be. It's kind of a resume of the changes that have occurred over the various years. You see our tape is cued there. I'm going to ask Roger to roll the tape, and you'll watch it right now. Roll that sucker, Raj. July 14th, 1949 started out as a sleepy day in Charlotte, North Carolina. Anticipated 88-degree temperatures and a trade show at the Armory Auditorium were about the only news of the day, until the clock struck 12 noon. Then the world as North Carolina knew it changed forever.
With the pushing of this button, direct television is brought to Charlotte and the Carolinas.
Good afternoon. This is Jim Patterson welcoming you to Channel 3 Television from WBTV, Charlotte, North Carolina.
My first memory is of walking out onto Trade Street, coming out of an alley behind what was then the Liberty Life buildings, now the Southeastern building, and across the street there was a furniture store, and I'm not sure what store it was, and there was a mob standing out there in the street, and I walked over there, and they were all staring at test pattern on some television sets in the window.
The impact on the community was tremendous. We had most of us had seen television in other cities, but to get it here in Charlotte and to see things on that little 6x6 rectangle of light in the living room was spectacular.
Norman Pravat and Lunas McGlowan were part of the new generation that pioneered this new medium. As WBTV's first producer-director, Norman oversaw live programming in studio and on location.
Sometimes you did have feelings about doing things that were historical, especially in special programming, you know, when the president would come through town, when Eisenhower was here, for instance, and we set up a remote broadcast from Freedom Park, and it was a very big undertaking for us. And we televised that same year. We televised a state Republican convention from what's now the Grady Cole Center.
The creativity was explosive. It was a brand new toy.
Lunas McGlowan came to WBTV to do Nocturne, a live bi-weekly jazz program. He fondly remembers the joys and the problems of those early days.
Well, we didn't have a chance to do anything over again because everything was live. For example, there was a night that Julian Massey, who was floor manager then, signaled a personality who was doing an automobile commercial. And it was one of those read my lips things. He got his attention and said, "Your fly is open. Your fly is open." And the guy didn't have a chance to look down and see, so he did the commercial walking sideways and holding the coat together. But what else can you do?
As television's technology became more sophisticated, Carolinians grew to depend upon WBTV and counted its programs and personalities as old friends. Specials, dramas, and musical programs magically flew through the air and into the homes of Western North Carolina. News was limited to small amounts of the movie tone news until Nelson Benton was hired as a local reporter.
Nelson would come in sometimes and say, "Norm, I have the greatest city council story you've ever seen." I say, "Nelson, how long is it?" He'd say, "I don't know, 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes." And I remember distinctly saying things like, "Nelson, there's no city council story worth 7 minutes in a 15-minute newscast. You got 3.
Television was bringing not only city council meetings into Carolina homes, but also a view of life in other places. Now you could visit with folks like Burns and Allen.
I forgot to mail that invitation.
Howdy Doody. And I Love Lucy. Then black and white gave way to color. WBTV's staff now understood television. Color gave them another new toy with which to pioneer Carolina TV.
We were first with color, and we were very proud that we were considered the best station in the Southeast.
Yet they were never too good to have fun. Practical jokes were also a high priority. One day, Lunas McGlowan thought he'd see just how professional Pat Lee could be.
She was doing a commentary for a fashion show, and I had persuaded one of the models, who was also a fine dancer, to do a trick, just to see if Pat would keep her composure and not break. And so the bit ran like this. The model came down a staircase in a dress and on cue tripped and rolled down the steps, and also at the same time grabbed for a column, one of those fake plastic Roman columns which had a vase of flowers. And although they were plastic flowers, I had put some water in the vase, and it was a big urn. And she also knocked the urn of flowers over on Pat, and Pat never broke.
Today, tomorrow, and for the next 40 years, everything you see on WBTV carries the mark of those who years ago took a chance on the strange new thing called television. But to all, we owe our gratitude for what WBTV is and for what it is yet to be. Well, as you can see, a lot has changed in those 40 years. Just as an example of how much has changed, there's a reel of film like I'm holding right now, is what Jim Patterson originally had to take out to our satellite, or rather our tower, in order to sign us on the air. Today we use little videotapes, beta tapes like this, so there's been a big, big change. We're going to kind of delve back more into the years that were when C.J. Underwood and Charles Crutchfield talk with you coming up next. So stay with us as Top of the Day remembers.
Folks, this is a Broadcast Pioneers Award presented to the station for distinguished contributions to the art of broadcasting, recognition of dedicated adherence to quality, integrity, and responsibility in programming and management. I think you could probably put that all those terms associated with one man you're about to meet. We have a little videotape to show him a long time ago, around July of 1949. There he is with some distinguished citizens in Charlotte at that time, celebrating WBTV going on the air. And he is none other than Charles Crutchfield, better known to his friends as Crutch. And here he is live with us in our lobby. You know, I don't think a lot of people probably realize that your career started just down the road in, what, Greenville, Spartanburg area?
Spartanburg, yeah.
And what year was that? Do you care to admit?
I started in 1929 in radio.
Goodness.
That's been a long time ago.
It's been a little while. But came to BT in what year?
33.
For how much money? Would you share that?
Yeah, it was $20 a week, and I was married at that time, by the way.
All right. Well, of course, $20 went a little ways at that time.
Well, yeah,
I
you
guess.
could buy something with it.
What was your job at that time?
I was an announcer.
An announcer.
And I became program director in about 2 years.
You know, in talking to you in these few minutes, I realized you could still do station breaks for us. Would you consider that?
What do you pay? Do you pay $20 a week?
We've gone up a bit, but so have expenses. What was the first really significant job that you recall having and enjoying in those years?
Well, I think the thing that gave me the most satisfaction was our Right Hanoi program during the Vietnam War. This was done in cooperation with Mr. Perot, Ross Perot from Texas. He was very much interested, and I called him and asked him if we couldn't cooperate on the television, and we did. And we raised 150,000 letters to get release of the prisoners. And Tom Cookerly, who was manager of the station, and 2 or 3 of his people flew those letters to Paris and dumped them over the wall where they were negotiating the so-called release of the prisoners.
Incredible. Now, that says to me something about the philosophy that you always had through the years as president of Jefferson Pilot Broadcasting. How would you describe how you felt the role of a broadcaster in his community?
Well, I think my role was to hire competent people who were highly qualified, and then sort of let them run their own thing or do their own thing. We felt very strongly all along that public service was more than lip service, that we had to do something, we had to put something into the community before we would get anything out of it.
Well, you know, I have a chronology here of events in your life. 1936, announcing the first Junior American Legion baseball game, the Roosevelt Rally. Tell us about the Roosevelt Rally here in Charlotte.
Roosevelt was coming to the Green Pastures Rally down in Memorial Stadium, the old stadium, and he was an hour late getting there. They were driving him in from Asheville, I believe, and it was raining. And so I had to ad-lib for 55 minutes, and this was on the coast-to-coast network. It just frightened me to death.
You didn't expect to have to do that?
No, but it was a great occasion. I'll never forget the president. He got up there, and just as he got to the podium, he was crippled. They were holding him. His son was holding him up. Just as he got there, a rainbow came across the stadium, and he said, "There's a rainbow in the sky," and thousands of people were sure he put it there.
Boy, what a moment for sure. You know, you even broadcast a slave wedding in Pineville. Why such an event?
Well, it was something different, and nobody had ever done it. And I saw in the Sunday paper that 2 slaves were getting married. They were up in their 90s, both of them. So I called Ralph Painter, who was the only engineer around that day, and we went down and got some wire from Duke Power Company. Yes. It was on a party line down here near Pineville, and we broadcast the slave wedding. And I climbed in the back seat with the couple, the bridal couple, as they were getting ready to leave, and I asked the old man what his plans were. He said, son, I think I'll settle down and raise a big family to take care of me in my old age.
Oh, boy.
And this hit the wires coast to coast.
Oh, my. Well, you've been associated with so many incredible events, but as your time during the leadership time here, you brought in Clyde McLean, Jim Patterson, Betty Feezor. Looking back over those, oh yeah, the quality people. You either had some great intuition or just got lucky.
I was lucky. And also, it seemed that everybody wanted to associate with WBT for some reason.
Sure.
And we got people like Alan Newcomb, Wally Jorgensen. We got him from WCCO, Jim Babb. He was selling pots and pans for some company.
Doing pretty good now in your place.
We got some great people. Jim's doing pretty well, yeah.
May I say, this gentleman, of course, spent 44 years here, and it is truly an honor to have been even allowed to follow through these halls where you have been.
Honor to be here.
Thank you, Mr.
Congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. Charles Crutchfield, and I'll tell you, a quality individual responsible for the institution where we stand. We'll be back.
It's no secret that the most popular woman in the history of WBTV was Betty Feezor. This wonderful lady spent 25 years sharing good information with you. Her program was the most popular women's show in America, and it is an honor for me to stand in her kitchen each day in the Betty Feezor studio. So today, we thought it would be appropriate if I shared with you one of her favorite recipes from one of her books. I get to visit with her very special husband and children here in Charlotte, and they shared with me her books. Her books, by the way, are still available here in the Charlotte area, probably in your area too. According to Betty, the most popular recipes that she did were cakes. So today, in honor of Betty, old-fashioned caramel cake, and you see that I had to have just a little bit of that. Actually, I had to have a lot of that. It is scrumptious, and this is what you do to make it. First of all, you're going to cream 1 stick of margarine or butter along with 1.5 cups of sugar. So I have these 2 ingredients, which I've already done that to in my mixing bowl. Again, 1 stick of butter or margarine and 1.5 cups of sugar. After you have creamed that, then you're going to add to that, one at a time, 2 eggs. You put 1 egg in and let it beat about a minute, then you're going to put the next one in. At this point in making cakes and making light and tender cakes, you really can't overbeat it. You want to keep beating it until it's nice and fluffy and smooth. It's when you begin adding the dry ingredients that the overbeating can take place. So at this point, really let it beat and whip, and then when you put the dry ingredients, move very quickly. The dry ingredients are 2 cups of flour, and I'm using cake flour because I think that cake flour is better for cakes. It's nice and tender and light. I'm going to alternately add that cake flour with 1 cup of either buttermilk or regular milk. The recipe calls for buttermilk, but you're also going to add to this a tablespoon of vinegar, and when you add the vinegar to any kind of milk, it's going to make it like buttermilk or sour milk. So if you don't have buttermilk on hand, the vinegar will sour the milk for you anyway. And you're also going to add to this about a teaspoon of baking soda. Anytime you're using sour milk or buttermilk, you're going to use baking soda. Now again, what you will do at this point is turn the mixer back on, and as quickly as possible, add your dry ingredients alternately with the liquid that goes into the cake. Now this will make 2 8-inch layer cakes. You're going to bake them at 350 for about 25 minutes. 350 for 25 minutes, and then they're ready to come out of the oven. Of course, you need to check it and make sure that they are done, and you need to let them cool. After they have cooled, you are going to put this luscious caramel frosting on it. Now, I'm going to confess that I doubled the amount of caramel frosting because I really like it. You don't have to do that, but it will be a thicker frosting layer on it if you do double it. But the original recipe begins with 1 stick of margarine. I'm going to cut this off now so you can hear me better. Remember, 350 for 25 minutes in 2 8-inch layer cake pans. Let them cool. It's important that they cool. The frosting is made with 1 stick of butter or margarine along with 1 box, of course you take it out of the box, of brown sugar, light brown sugar. You're going to put that in with your butter or margarine, 1 stick of that. And then you're going to add 1/2 cup of evaporated milk You can use cream if you want, but evaporated milk is what the recipe calls for. You let that cook for about 6 or 7 minutes, and I suggest that you stir that as it's cooking. Just let it bubble for about 6 or 7 minutes. Remove it from the heat. Let it cool for about 5 minutes. You're going to then add 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and then you want to beat this with an electric mixer. That works best. You're going to beat it until it's thick enough to spread on your cake. Let's see very quickly the ingredients for this, and I will put it on our recipe sheet in case you didn't get it all down. Believe me, it is worth your time. Old-fashioned caramel cake from Betty Feezor's cookbook. 1 stick of margarine, 1½ cups of sugar, 2 eggs, 2 cups of flour, along with 1 cup of buttermilk, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Then for the frosting, you're going to melt 1 stick of margarine, mix with that 1 box of light brown sugar, 1½ cups of evaporated milk, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and enjoy. Now back to the future. I will see you at Belk this afternoon in Concord, and there's more of Top. Stay with us.
Hugh Harkey and Mike McKay profile some famous faces from Carolina television in the next half of Top of the Day.
Carolinas at this number.
Now, this is a view that you very rarely see. We're in back of the station right now, and these are our satellite dishes, and in front of that is NewsStar. NewsStar enables us to go anywhere in the country and send you back pictures and the story wherever it happens to be breaking, whether it's Seattle, Washington, or Statesville. The 2 dishes that you see behind NewsStar allow us to pull satellite transmissions from anywhere within the country and indeed the world, and also to send them out. Now, that we all day long we've been remembering and talking about the past. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about the future now. I'm standing here with James G. Babb. Jim, as we affectionately know him. He is the president of Jefferson Pilot Communications. Jim, we have been looking back at the past, and we've really, I think it's sometimes we forget that we are a very young industry. Television is really only about 40 years old.
That is true. It certainly is 40 years old in the Carolinas. As an industry, it's only 50 years old, so we're still just in mid-age, so to speak. It was a fun look, looking back over the past 40 years, though. Triggered off a lot of fond memories.
It does make us wonder, though, where we are going to go. If we have made such enormous advances in the short time that this invention has been on the air, where are the next 40 years likely to take us?
Well, I'm very excited and enthusiastic about the future, Lynn. I think that the golden age is still in front of us, as a matter of fact. Just in this decade, we've added these satellite dishes and the uplink truck, satellite news gathering truck that we have. And I think what we're going to see, the 2 major things that will impact our viewers at home, will be the further miniaturization of sets. We'll probably see in the early part of the 90s wrist watch television.
Kind of like Dick Tracy?
Kind of Dick Tracy, exactly Dick Tracy. And I think we'll see that in the early part of the 90s. The most important overall technological advancement as far as home viewing is concerned will be in the form of what we call high-definition television, Hdtv, or ACT, Advanced Television. And to give a simple comparison, I would say the beauty of the pictures that you see on your home television set in color today would be, compared to when we first went on the air 40 years ago in black and fuzzy black and white, the next advance in the mid-90s will be that great an advance. I mean, if you think they're at least 100% better now than they were in 1949, I do. I think by 1995, the television viewer will see pictures on their home set that will be at least 100% better than what we see now in full color with greater definition and very exciting potential and the things that we'll be able to do with that.
Well, speaking as a reporter, I look forward to that. You always see us out here at noon and we have these long, dark shadows on our faces. Will HDTV eliminate that sort of thing?
Well, no, it'll emphasize it, as a matter of fact. No, it'll give a very true picture of what's actually there and the fidelity that we'll see will be beyond description. And now Top of the Day and PM Magazine take trips all over the world to bring beautiful sights back into the homes of the Carolinians. What we will be seeing in the mid-90s will be spectacular. Because of the satellites and the miniaturization of cameras and the rest of the equipment, virtually any spot in the world is now accessible to us and therefore to our viewers. And I think you all have done a beautiful job of bringing the world into the homes. So what it will do is be able to bring it in with greater definition, more clarity, and just more real life than we can even do it now.
Do you think television and perhaps, like, so let's say, the phone companies will join forces using phone lines? Will we one day, through our television set, be able to send in a script to the office, pay our bills, and also check and find out what's going on in China?
No doubt, no doubt. There'll be a full spectrum of consumer needs being met through the television and through cable. Interestingly, though, I think the thing that we're so enthusiastic about free, universal, over-the-air television, I mean, it is free. All you need is a television set and an antenna, and you can get the world brought to your living room or to your bedroom or to your bathroom or kitchen, wherever. And we're very excited about that because now, even with cable, over 80% of the viewing is done to stations like WBTV and everything.
Thank you so much for talking with us about the future. Of course, Jim is going to be the guy that is going to lead WBTV into the future, and I think the company's in pretty good hands.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you, and hope you will stay with us for the next few minutes. We have more Top of the Day. We're going to look back and look ahead. Stay with us.
WBTV fondly remembers old friends and new.
All right, boys and girls, come on now. Let's sing our song. How we love the little rascals.
The original Picanti sauce. Pick up the pace.
And look at the beautiful cake that celebrates our birthday. It was made by Kathy Goggin from Happy Cakes. If you want more information about cakes like this, you can call us and we'll give you the number. But isn't that a beautiful cake commemorating this very special day?
You know, as a matter of fact, the station management has been very nice on this day to us. We have little watches we've been given with those little
here,
designs
a brand
on
new
them.
watch.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, we're just sort of showing off these things to each other. It has been a great time for us here, and especially it has been wonderful to look back on some people like Clyde McLean, Jim Patterson, Betty Feezor, Pat Lee, Alan Newcomb. Those originals who made this place what it is and gave us such big footsteps to follow in.
They sure did, and I tell you what, I think we are very adequately following them. I don't mean the four of us standing here, but all the people that bring you WBTV and Top of the Day and our newscasts every single day. All of our ENG people, our production staff, our directors,
all this crowd.
our company president walking in right now. We could not do what we do without them, and we're in here in front of everything, and you see us, but these are the people that make things happen.
But you're right. But the thing we can't do without is the people at home. Here is a look. We leave you today with a look at some of the crazy things we used to do to get you to watch WBTV.
Bye-bye.
Hey, watch 3. Stay with 3. Hey, watch 3. TV 3. 3 keeps bringing it home to you. Bringing it home to you. WBTV. People you know, people you believe in. WBTV. Good friends never lose that feeling. Turn to people you know.
Natural, only from Kraft. Sarah James, on your side with WBTV News.
Well, we continue Top of the Day now in our videotape room where the people here have got a lot more brains than I'll ever have.
You know, I like being with you every day, but it's fun to be with people like this. John Jacobs, who is known as resident genius sometimes, always, I guess we should say. Also, videotape engineer, and he makes it possible. Another one of the people who make it possible for you to see what you do each day on Top of the Day. And what are we going to be seeing today?
Okay, we're hearing Roll 10. All right. Hey, coming up, we got more news with Lori, but a lot more history here in our second half.
That's right. Mike will be talking with historian Hugh Harkey about personalities, and then we have Jim Babb coming along, our president, with Lynn Bradley Love. Right now, it's time for news.
Hello again, everyone. Well, yesterday we couldn't believe it. Today it's getting bizarre. It is the story of that pilot who survived an unconscious 5-hour flight and crashed into the ocean. Today, police in Florida say that 36-year-old Thomas Root had been shot through the stomach with the bullet passing through his rib cage, his colon, and his arm. Today, Root's in stable condition in a Miami hospital. Investigators say that a gunpowder burn indicated that Root was shot at close range in the air, but it did not say whether that gunshot was self-inflicted. Over the past 2 weeks, more than 24 people have been arrested in one of Charlotte's city parks. The charges are homosexual activities, sometimes going on in broad daylight. Vice officers are focusing their activities at the Methodist Home Park in East Charlotte. The police investigation was kicked off by complaints from people over the past several weeks. After checking just one time, undercover Vice Sergeant L.B. Wallace found a big
people
problem.
that were very blatant about what they were doing and wanting to do. And I've had the officers come back in and said if we'd had more officers, we could make more arrests. It must have been 25 or 30 of these people up and scattered through the woods.
Mike Reen takes his family to the park a lot. He's heard about the problems.
We try to stay out of the woods a little bit more. You know, when we're up there with the dogs, it's not so much of a problem, but when we're just taking a walk, we won't go out in the woods, you know, because we're concerned safety-wise.
Police say that the Vice operation has resulted in better conditions at the park. They plan to continue that effort at the Methodist Home Park and at some other city parks as well. If you drive along Providence Road and Central Avenue much, maybe you're wondering if the water main projects are ever going to be done. Well, the Utilities Department says both are on schedule. A couple of years ago, heavy, consistent rain slowed down that big 54-inch pipeline construction a couple of years ago. As for the recent rain, the Utility Department says only slight delays on the Providence Road project. The Central Avenue job is 50% complete. It's expected to be online by the end of the year. Water main work on Providence Road should be finished by next summer. And now, an oxymoron, if there ever was one, some old news in honor of WBTV's 40th birthday today. If I had been giving the newscast on July 14th, 1949, here are some of the things that I would have talked about. Well, NATO was big in the news. The treaty was signed that year. Cake mixes were new on the market, and the Pillsbury Bake-Off began. Chrysler offered the first disc brakes, and RCA introduced the first 45 RPM record. South Pacific was on Broadway, and we were amusing ourselves with things like Silly Putty, the Samba, and Canasta cards. The Lone Ranger made the big leap to television, and we were wearing ponytails and sweater sets and flared skirts, the women anyway. At the grocery store, we were paying 14 cents for a loaf of bread, 27 cents for a gallon of gas, and the average 3-bedroom house in 1949 cost $7,400. The average income, though, about $3,000 a year back then. We were singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, and our favorite TV show was The Life of Raleigh. You see, they didn't have Top of the Day back then. We'll be back with more Top of the Day right after this. And yesterday we had a little bit of rain. Today doesn't look like that's going to happen, and you might appreciate the break when you're out in the heat, doing the heat tonight.
The Charlotte Heat opened last night, doing a little announcing for them out there. Great night, and we have, boy, do we have a cool night coming your way for this time in July. What a bonus is upon us. And this weekend, as we celebrate our 40th, boy, we picked the right weekend. You did too if you got some outdoor activities. Right now, let's take a look outside. And we're seeing some really lovely mid-July weather, blue skies, and lovely Charlotte trees to look at. And I'm telling you, I think this will be a real lovely weekend for you, one of the best we've had in a long time. 100 miles across North and South Carolina on our Radar Plus indicates really all clear. Nothing to discuss as far as precipitation goes at this time. Other areas of the country, as always, with a different story. Texas, Louisiana, lots of areas along the Gulf Coast area into Florida are experiencing showers, but if you look to the northern sections, oh, is it looking good. We have a high-pressure system that's coming down off the Great Lakes, bringing that cooler Canadian air our way, and that front that brought a lot of threats of thunderstorms that didn't really materialize for most of the area has moved on through now. Cooler air filling in behind. Now, of course, we're not talking anything like fall, but it's going to be back into the lower to mid-80s, and that sure beats 90 to 95 any day, doesn't it? All the bad weather in front of it, moving on, sunshine, high pressure filling in. You just can't get it any better than that. Across our two states already, things are really clearing out. You're going to be seeing mostly sunshine with a few little fluffy clouds for the next 2 or 3 days, folks. And let's see the numbers on the board. 79 at Asheville, 75 in Boone, 77 in Raleigh, 80 at Wilmington and Charleston, 85 in Columbia. That's 84 at Greer. Charlotte reporting 83 degrees at the noontime hour. With 46% humidity, the winds out of the north at 6 miles an hour, barometer 29.93, and 'tis rising. Today, clouds and sun, less humid, a high of 86 degrees. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy. And how about that low? 66. Boy, it's going to feel good. Sunny to partly cloudy, a high of 84 tomorrow. And all through that weekend period, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. The beginning of next week, chance of showers picking back up, keeping the numbers in a good spot for a temperature. Now, I do believe we're going, what, back to Lori? All righty? Pine Terrace, as a matter of fact, to Mike McKay.
Yes, CJ, thank you very much. We're down here with Hugh Harkey, who is the delightful historian whom we always enjoy here on Top of the Day. We're going to talk about our WBTV family for a little bit, but let me run these words by you. Any great enterprise is the product of many factors: ideas, capital, facilities, equipment, and people. The most important factor is people. And pictured on the walls here in our Pine Terrace cafeteria at WBTV and Jefferson Pilot Communications are some of the incredible people who have worked here over the years. And Hugh, let's begin. A lot of folks have moved into the area and did not grow up watching WBTV. So for some of them, who were some of the earliest personalities at the station?
Well, the early group, and of course, they started from the Wilder building downtown, so they call them the Wilder Bunch. And they were a wild and zany bunch, and they pushed TV to its potential. And very creative bunch of people and very fun-loving. Of course, Alan Newcomb, the Atlantic weatherman, who had been a World War II bomber pilot. Jim Patterson, who signed on the station and, of course, was known as Uncle Jim on the Junior Rancho program with Fred Kirby. Betty Feezor in 1953 joined the station. Pat Lee, who had read the Sunday comics on the radio, was with the station. Lonis McGlowan, the musician, and of course Bob Rayford, who is on radio now, but he hosted Nocturne, which was a jazz television program in those early days. There was a lot of great TV.
That's for sure, and very much pioneering TV, since this obviously was the first one in the Carolinas and one of the very first television stations in the South. Let's hone in on a couple of the individuals you mentioned, some of the early women of WBTV. I guess Betty and Pat were the best known.
Well, Betty and Pat were the best known, perhaps, but Susie McIntyre was one of the early women on television and did the Carolina Cooking Show. Doris Hagler, who did a Man Around the House feature. I'm trying to think. Kathy Haynes, who did a shopping on TV feature. Of course, then Gail Harris, much later, joined the station, a very young anchor person. And, of course, then we have Sarah James and Sarah Van Allen with the station today. And of course, Barbara Stutts, now McKay.
Well, obviously, I'm highly biased, but we've had wonderful women working for us and tremendous ones. Now, I think there we go. Here is Gil Stamper, whom a lot of people will remember from both radio and television.
Right, Gil was one of the early announcers. He was part of that group that was the Wilder bunch that was there in the first 5 years.
Yeah, Gil was a tremendous guy. Now, it looks like we have the, I guess, the Cracker Jacks here.
Well, several musical groups in those early days that it transferred from radio to television. Arthur Smith and the Cracker Jacks, Cecil Campbell in the Tennessee Ramblers, and of course Cecil just recently passed away.
Yeah, well, what a tremendous amount of history. And here are some people that we will all recognize, Doug and Clyde.
Yes, of course, Clyde McLean, a weatherman who'd been on radio for years and then came to television and kind of was the voice of the weather in the Carolinas for many years. They never did let Clyde forget that he had miscast the Christmas 1947, I believe it was, weathercast. He said it wouldn't snow, there wouldn't be a white Christmas. The next morning there were 8 inches of snow on the ground.
He said it was going to be partly cloudy, and people said there were 8 inches of partly cloudy on the ground. And that's when they started calling him Clyde McLean, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. And, of course, Doug pictured there with him, and he was the dean of Carolina Newscasters.
Right. Doug started as the SO reporter and was with WBTV for many years, and then he finally left.
What a great guy he is, too. And here is a genuine legend, not only here in the Charlotte area, but all throughout the Southeast, and a man who actually migrated to Hollywood back in the 30s and made some movies out there, Fred Kirby.
Right, Fred Kirby and Calico, and as you said, they're well known throughout Western Carolina. Tweetsy Railroad, the Junior Rancho program, and, of course, Uncle Jim Patterson was with him on that program.
Okay, and Fred, thank goodness, is still alive and doing well and looking fantastic, as a matter of fact. No longer alive, but her legend sure persists, Betty Feezor.
Right, Betty Feezor, and as you mentioned, Betty Feezor and Pat Lee were probably two of the leading ladies with WBT, and they both passed away very close together. Pat at the end of 1977, and Betty passed away in February of '78, and was a loss of two wonderful women.
That's for sure. Two very talented people, too. And here, back to Clyde again. Clyde, of course, the original weatherman, not only in this part of the country, but really about the premier one in the South.
Well, that's right. Clyde was a great weatherman. Of course, I guess you learned most of your trade underneath him.
working with him for an awful lot of years. What a tremendous man. And of course, well known, too, as the announcer for the Arthur Smith Show for a lot of years.
Right, that's right. Of course, Alan Newcomb, the Atlantic weatherman. Alan was a great fellow, died at a very early age, had been a World War II bomber pilot, and spent 8 months in a German POW camp.
And people still ask about Alan. Obviously, the memory's going to be there forever, but people still ask about, you know, those years gone by, and he was a tremendous success here, too.
Oh, yes. Of course, Big Bill Ward, who was a sportscaster and also hosted the three-ring circus children's show, but the voice of the South and a voice of wrestling, Big Bill Ward.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because they used to tape the wrestling shows here at the station, and of course Big Bill was kind of the host of those. Now here we have Art Linkletter and Ty Boyd.
Right, Ty Boyd. You know, the one thing is the cooperation between radio and television. A number of those early personalities, of course, had to get their training on radio, but even today, WBTV still pulls talent from their radio station. I know you were on radio. Ty Boyd was on radio for a number of years.
When I first came to the station, which is now more than 22 years ago, the staffs were combined. You did everything, AM, FM, and TV at that time. Of course, we have separate staffs now, but it's a great interaction between the radio and TV sides.
Also been interaction with the newspaper. Bob Quincy came from the Charlotte Observer, and Jim Babb was with the Charlotte Observer.
I tell you, we've had some wonderful people here, and you're very wonderful for staying with us here on Channel 3. We hope you do. Hugh, thanks for joining us. It was a wonderful rundown of some of the great people here.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, good to see you. More Top of the Day yet to come. You stay with us.